Thank you everyone for coming this evening. We know that you guys are all busy, so it means a lot that you took time out of your evening to come meet with us this evening and see a great presentation. I'm going to talk a little bit about our organization, the Josh Anderson Foundation. It's named after my brother, Josh, who died by suicide in 2009. And we created this organization to honor his life as well as prevent this from happening to other families and to other youth. We've partnered again with the Safe Community Coalition in bringing mental wellness initiatives into McLean High School, Langley High School, Thomas Jefferson High School, and then moving into other schools such as Madison, Chantilly, Lake Braddock. So we're really getting a nice big reach here in the community in Fairfax County. So without further ado, Jordan Burnham.
My name is Jordan Burnham, and I am a professional public speaker on mental health and suicide prevention. And so it's my job to go around the country to speak to young adults in middle schools, high schools, colleges, all across the country. A lot of times people think of crazy or psycho when they hear mental health, but a lot of times people wouldn't think of someone who looks like me, who suffers from depression and try to take his own life. But tonight I don't want to just focus on just me, just my story, but what I like to focus on are mental health issues and mental health disorders. Mental health issues, that's something we all go through. That's something we all have to cope with, and that's how you view yourself internally. That could be affected by a lot of different things, like going through a bad breakup or divorce, feeling like you don't fit in, going through a difficult time. Those are your mental health issues. Then there are mental health disorders which you're diagnosed with, like depression, bipolar, schizophrenia. Now, 20 to 25% of young adults will suffer from a mental health disorder in a given year, but a lot of them don't seek help. But there's also this shame and stigma associated with not only having mental health issues or having a mental health disorder, but the funny thing in our society is that you're looked down upon if you talk about those issues, if you go to seek treatment. But I always hope that by the end of my presentation, that conversation is made a little easier if you may have to. But going through 7th and 8th grade, I was able to play sports, tell jokes, gain friends. That going into 9th grade, I was actually voted class president, which is something I should have been really happy and proud of. But at the same time, I feel like I'm in a community, but I'm not really a part of one. Because I'm going to school with a mask on my face, hiding the fact that I feel depressed, I feel lonely, and I feel like I don't belong. I'm going to school with fake laughs, with fake smiles. So maybe the people around me that call themselves friends, maybe they were fake too, because they still didn't know the true me, the true Jordan. In 9th grade of high school, that was a tough transition for me, because it was the first time I started doing a lot of different things. It was the first time I started trying to please other people instead of just myself, dressing a certain way, hanging out with certain groups of people, going to parties just to fit in. 9th grade was also the first time that I started drinking. I didn't drink just to black out, get drunk for no reason. I drank because that was the one time me and my guy friends could talk about something real other than girls or sports. Now, that was the first negative coping mechanism I picked up while I was in high school. Was that I found out it's not awkward, it's not weird for guys to talk about our emotions or feelings while we were drinking, especially by the time we were drunk. So I figured that was the only way to truly express what I was going through. 9th grade was also the first time I started to see my grade slip, and I couldn't figure out why. Why I could never pay attention in class. I just lacked motivation. Felt like I was 10 steps behind everyone else. I just couldn't put the pieces together and trying to figure out why. At this point, my emotions worked like a rubber band, where I could go and extend for a really long period of time holding in my emotions, but when I let go of them, I snapped. So I sit down and start talking to my mom, and I'm figuring we're just going to talk about the driver's test, but we start talking about my overall emotions, my mental health, so my anger management, how I feel about being at this new school, my sister being away at college, and then finally she gets around to the point, she says, I think we should go see a therapist. Now, in my mind, up to this point, I'm a 16-year-old guy in high school. I figured anything I'm going through, I can drink it off, talk to my girlfriend about it, play sports and forget about it. I figured there was no reason for me to go see a therapist. But my mom did a really good job of talking me into going, meaning I was forced to go. And I get into my therapist's office, and I'm very judgmental because I don't want to be there. But it took time for me to realize that it's a process of not only finding the right therapist, but then feeling comfortable in talking to them. Because it's just like any other friendship, any other relationship. It takes time before you can build that foundation of trust and comfort. That's something I had to learn on my own because I didn't get this type of presentation when I was in middle school. I didn't know how to talk to a therapist. I didn't know how to find the right therapist. Now that year when I was in 10th grade, 16, I was diagnosed with depression. And that was confusing to me because I didn't know what the difference was between feeling depressed and actually having depression. Now anyone in here at any given point in time can feel depressed, but more times than not, you know what you're depressed about. Maybe it's an anniversary of something very saddening to you. Maybe going through a difficult breakup, a difficult time, but you know why you're crying. You know why you don't feel like yourself. You know why you lack motivation. Well, someone like me who has depression, they can wake up one day and have no idea why they have such a low self-esteem, why they're crying for no reason, just lack motivation to get up and get out of bed, get the day started. It's frustrating. And it wasn't whether I was going to wake up having depression or not, it's just what level am I on emotionally because of my depression. 1 or 2 is saying, I feel so low, I'm thinking about suicide, taking my own life. 9 or 10 is saying, today's a good day, but what's tomorrow going to be like? Kind of a pessimistic way of viewing the world. And I didn't tell anyone I was diagnosed with depression. I figured if word gets out that Jordan has depression, people are going to look at me and say that I'm weird and weak for going to see a therapist, for taking medicine. And so I finally had some answers to maybe why my sleep and my appetite were so inconsistent, why some days I just had such a low self-esteem, just depressed for no reason. But I never wanted to use depression as an excuse. I didn't want it to define me, so I didn't take it seriously. I wasn't truthful during my therapy sessions. I didn't take my antidepressant on a consistent basis because I figured depression is just like a cold, that it'll go away after a couple weeks after I take some pills and go see this therapist. Now, going into my junior year, literally the first assembly I had and the first thing I heard about high school was you have to make sure your GPA is high your freshman year, and junior year is the most important year. When it comes to grades, when it comes to sports, it's the hardest year. I hated that pressure because my sister was a valedictorian in high school. She was the president of all the clubs. She got a full academic scholarship to Penn State University. I thought I had to live up to everything that she did. And no one ever told me that. My mom, my dad, my sister, they never told me that, but I put that unfair pressure, all this stress on myself. And because of that, I was really struggling academically in the beginning of my junior year. And one night my depression got to a level 4 or 5. Not necessarily thinking about suicide, but questioning what life would be like for other people if I wasn't here. Would my parents be happier if I wasn't here and messing up in school? Would my girlfriend be happier if I wasn't here and messing up our relationship? And I fell right back into my midst of depression saying, why talk about how I feel when no one truly cares or understands? Because in the mental hospital, it was understood we all had problems, we all had issues. That's why we were in a mental hospital. We sat down in a group and we talked about them, but there were things I could say to complete strangers that I couldn't even tell my best friends that I'd known for years. Because still, we didn't communicate on that level, and I felt like no one truly understood what it felt like to feel depressed, to feel sad, and to feel like you don't belong. So I still didn't talk about my emotions unless we were drinking. So by the time my senior year started, I was constantly having suicidal thoughts. Not questioning whether I would do it or not, but going through a checklist of, well, if I did, how would I do it? The one thing I said over and over again was I don't necessarily want to die, but the part of me that has depression, I want that part to die. And even though there are a couple great things that happened in the beginning of my senior year, it just didn't matter, it was numb to me. Being selected for homecoming court, it's great to be accepted by your peers and your friends, but at this point it's just numb to me. Selected for the individual playoffs for golf, which is something I should have been really happy and excited about, proud of, but again, it's just numb to me. And now my heart starts pounding, questioning, what did I do this time? Did I upset my parents yet again? And that's when my dad walked in with a duffel bag full of alcohol that I had in the trunk of my car. And when he dropped that duffel bag, my heart dropped with it, saying, here I am, their son. All I do is disappoint them, make them angry, upset. I can tell by the expression on their faces, they don't even want me to be their son anymore. What's the point on being on this earth if I can't make the people that mean the most to me happy? My mom, my dad, my sister, if I can't make them happy, what's the point in being here? And that was the night I tried to take my own life by going out of my 9-story bedroom window. When I hit the ground 100 feet below, I broke my left fibula, which ripped through the skin. I broke my left tibia. I shattered my left femur. I broke my pelvis. I broke my jaw in 4 different places, and I broke my left wrist. I was bleeding internally from my brain and my organs, and when I was flown to the hospital that night, I was induced into a coma for 5 days. To this day, I don't remember going out my window. I remember everything else leading up to that event. The car ride home with my dad, golfing that day, even the expression on my parents' faces. But for some reason, I don't remember going out the window. And it was an impulsive act, meaning I didn't plan it, I didn't write a letter or a note. But when my dad dropped that duffel bag full of alcohol, there was a trigger in my brain saying, I don't belong here anymore. The words and the thought suicide attempt didn't even come into my head at this point. Because yeah, I knew I had thoughts of not wanting to be here, what life would be like for other people if I wasn't here, but I never thought I would go through with those emotions. 19% of young adults contemplate suicide in a given year, but the ones who have depression are 5 times more likely to go through with it. I never thought I'd be a part of that statistic. Now, it's been just over 5 years since my suicide attempt, and the obvious question is, how am I doing today? I feel great doing what I am today. I absolutely love my job. I love being able to go around the country to speak on this subject and to speak on this story in hopes to make a difference, in hopes to start conversations of mental health. That's very important to me. I also have a very healthy emotional balance, and that doesn't include things like drinking just to express my thoughts and emotions, but things that keep me positive, that keep me healthy. I love being able to listen to music, hang out with my friends, being able to drive around, being able to work out is something that absolutely is helpful to my mental health. All of these things combined with going to see a therapist still, taking my medicine. Because at the end of the day, my depression isn't a cold. It's not like it goes away after a couple weeks. It's still something I have to deal and cope with, but I deal and cope with it in a much better way than I did especially 5 years ago. And now, in conclusion, to wrap up, I'm glad everyone came out tonight, and it's so great to see a wonderful turnout tonight. It was so great to speak to the kids today, and it's special. I love speaking to any age group, whether it's middle school, high school, college, but especially high school students. Because when I was in high school, this is what I needed. I needed this presentation. I needed a story to let me know that it's okay to get help. It's okay to have depression and say, all right, it doesn't define who I am, and I can seek talk therapy and feel comfortable doing so. I can have depression, still feel confidence, and actually getting better and getting healthier. I needed that permission. I needed a story to just hold on to. And that's why I'm always so passionate about speaking at especially middle schools, but also high schools as well, because I picture myself being in that audience and the difference that it could make for myself when I was a teenager. So again, thank you so much for letting me come and share my story and coming tonight. I appreciate it so much. So thank you.